Today I have a Sanyo VHS Hi-Fi VCR. Mechanisms jammed, won't load a tape, so obviously it's not going to play because you can't put a tape in it. Anyway, let's see why this one's not working, if we can get this one going. I'm cleaning out my garage, so I got to get this stuff working so that I can sell or give it away. So let's check this one out and see if we have success. The Sanyo VCR. And watch what it does with the symptom. You have to listen when I do this too. You hear the motors, and you hear the drum spinning up, and I can see the front loader trying to move, but the front loader is back a ways. So let's take the top off this one. So watch when I turn on the power. You see it's trying to load. So I believe we have a timing problem on this one, or maybe a mode switch problem. So we're going to remove the chassis. There's a couple more screws, I think, down the front here. Yeah, there's a couple more screws down the front, and there's some screws on the bottom. So let me just remove some screws here. My cat is hollering. You can hear him. So once the screws are removed, we're going to unplug the drum and the head from the preamp. And now I should be able to remove the chassis. So here's our mode switch on this one. We will clean this for sure, and we check the timing of the mechanism. So the mode switch in eject mode sits like that. I should be able to pop this one apart without unsoldering it too. If I just get a screwdriver in here, I should be able to pop it apart. Oh yeah, it needs to be cleaned. You can see the oxidation. That's probably what went wrong with this in the first place. Is the mode switch got dirty and caused the mechanism to go out of alignment. I'm just going to get some contact cleaner. Put a drop or two of deoxit. I'm just using the D100 cleaner just because it's very pure. I don't need much, and I have full control as to how much I dispense. So it makes it go a long way. I can also use the metal tip to kind of scratch the surface slightly to help break any surface tension and get the cleaner onto the contacts. And use cotton swab to polish the contacts up. You can see what came off of these contacts. That's a little cleaner than we started. Do the same for the switch contacts themselves. Put a little bit of deoxit on to the contacts. And wipe them. And then we'll put another drop or two onto the switch so we can work it in with the switch rotor. Pop the switch back together. and give it a couple spins. And then be sure we align it with the eject mode, with the little mark, the timing mark. That way, when I put the mechanism back together in the eject mode, the timing should be correct for the mode switch. Also on this chassis, although we don't have a problem with it now, but other things to keep in mind that can cause problems on here is these rotation sensors. They stick up through the bottom and into the reel tables, and they read slots in the reel tables. They go through here and here. And basically they're just an infrared beam that shines across, and as the reel table turns, it's got slots in it. So that determines how fast each of the reels are turning. That's used by some features such as calculating how much time remains on a tape, because it calculates the relationship between the supply and the take-up. So these can fail, and if these fail, your symptom will be the unit goes into play for 5 seconds and stops, or 3 seconds, or whatever it is. Let's take a look at the actual mechanism itself. It looks like our timing is off by a little bit. Looks like this gear here is out of position for starters. The other ones, I don't know. They might be okay. Let's just remove this midway gear. That way we can work everything else through its paces, and we'll remove this gear. This is the gear that operates the front loader. Now the front loader is ejected, this gear here, as it turns, this is what operates the mechanism. As you can see, it operates the main cam, which loads and unloads the tape as it goes through the modes. The main plastic cam looks to be okay on here. I don't see anything broken. Everything seems to be going through its paces. This cam, I think this cut washer holds it on, so that won't come off. But typically on this one you've got one main timing mark. It says in. You can see the word in there. That's going to probably face towards a timing mark on this midway gear. And when it's loaded, there's different modes that it goes through. FL is probably fully loaded. There are also timing marks. I've never worked on one of these mechanisms personally, so I'm kind of learning as I go along. But if we look down through here, there is a timing mark. There is a hole in the chassis. You can see it right there. So those line up, and there's another hole down here. These line up when the mechanism in its unloaded position. There's a hole on this gear here below. Can we see it when I kick it all the way out or not? Yeah, there it is there. You see that hole there? So that hole lines up with this hole here when it's on the unloaded position. So those holes line up, that hole lines up, and the word in over here is going to point towards this other gear. There's another timing mark over here, and that's pointing towards, looks like there's a timing mark on this gear too. Let me just get a closer look at that. See the timing mark there? So that one's, the timing is correct. Right? Those two are lining up with each other. You can see right there. There's a little arrow there. Those two arrows point together. This one's going to point at the front loading gear. It says FL, so that's going to point towards the front loading gear, and this one's going to point towards the other gear. So when you have these timing marks lined up, this mechanism should be ready to go. There should be a timing mark on this one, which there is. There's a little indentation there. So when this front loader is all the way forward, I should be able to drop this gear in place and line up those marks. and snap that in place. Now when I turn this gear by hand, I should be able to load the mechanism and have the basket operate and drop into place and go through its motion. So let's do that before I put this gear back on. So I have to release the latch. There's a latch on here to stop the cassette from being pushed in unless there's a tape in. There's a little lever here that we have to pull down, and that releases this catch right there. So we pull down that catch and start the mechanism moving. As I turn the gear, I can cause the mechanism to drop like that. And as I continue to turn the gear, here we have one of our tape guides pulls into position, and our mechanism loads. And our pinch roller now engages, as you can see. So this should work. I don't know whether someone jammed the tape or whether that. I suspect what happened is the mode encoder switch was dirty, and it caused the motor to run, and it's caused the teeth to skip. Although I don't see any broken or mashed teeth, but usually that's the case. But it looks like that's what's happened. Is this just gear jumped? Either it skipped here or it skipped here, one of the two. But it looks like it jumped out of its home position. So if I put this gear on, let's just see what lines up here. I don't think it matters, but there should be a couple timing marks on here. In. I think lines up with that hole there. And then this hole points over here, you see? So this in mark is going to line up with that hole, and then this one lines up on this side. And if you look down through there, that hole looks like it's lining up with one below it. So that, I think, will do it. So let's just put this chassis back together. We're going to drop the chassis back in. The main cam gear here is going to drive, I think the main cam gear drives the mode switch. And that's why it's got this little tooth here that sticks out. That's going to sit into this slot here on the mode switch. So we drop the chassis back in. Now I'll just put a couple screws in it to hold it in place for now. I never got a chance to work on these machines. I was gone. I don't know what year this is. This looks pretty modern. By made in Indonesia. What year was this thing? I think this is got to be after. It's got to be after 2003. I never saw any of these. I don't see a date of manufacture on this thing, but I'm guessing it's got to be. It's after 2003. Has to be, or around there. I never saw any of these when I was in the business. Plug the head back in. Oh. If I can get it to plug in. Without breaking it, that is. Sometimes you gotta do it that way. And the other ribbon cable. Okay, let's supply power and see whether this thing does anything different. That's a good sign. Just going to put my TV on the correct input. Fingers crossed. And it works. It works. There we go. Volume. Well, the alignment sounds to be a bit out. Okay, we'll check the alignment on this thing. Sounds like the hi-fi audio is not tracking up right. We'll just put the scope on it and check the alignment. Switch point and envelope is right down here at the back. It's marked. See? Envelope, and this one says switch point. SWP. So switch point and envelope right there. And looking on the scope, we are a little bit off. So we're going to adjust the P2 guide here and the P3 guide to get the alignment correct. So let's do it.
Seems to disappear when you cover the opening in the monitor. Demonstrate a step. Rinse and cover and uncover the opening in the monitor.
Okay, that's looking pretty good now. Almost perfect. It's not quite. We're getting there.
The demonstration for the benefit
Let's clean the heads. So we just use some isopropanol on a piece of paper, hold it up against the head drum, press moderately and spin the head drum to clean the heads themselves. And we'll use a Q-tip to clean the rest of the transport. I'm getting low on this isopropanol, but rest assured I have more. I have a full bottle of it. One of my clients got me some. It's funny, you know, you go into the drugstores, look for isopropanol, and these days with the pandemic and everything, everybody's buying all the alcohol they can. And the kicker to this is that I'm cleaning the upper portion, I'm not cleaning the heads with this. The kicker to it is this stuff is 99%. Same with this new bottle that I've got here, 99%. This is good as a solvent for cleaning. In fact, this is what you want to use. You don't want to use 70% or 60%. You need to use 99% when you're using it for cleaning tape heads. And the reason why is that 70% has 30% water. 99% is 99% alcohol. It's isopropanol alcohol is typically a mixture of methyl alcohol and ethanol. And they do that so that it's denatured, so that you're not going to drink it, because ethanol is what's in booze, but methanol is toxic. So they mix the two alcohols together but it's still 99% alcohol, to make their rubbing alcohol 99%, which is isopropanol. But you don't want to use the 70% stuff, because 70% has got water. And water, well, first of all, will take a lot longer to dry. When you're putting it on the heads, it's going to take longer to dry. But also, water can cause rust. So you want to use pure, high purity, 99% alcohol for cleaning circuit boards, cleaning heads, and that type of stuff. But this stuff's no good for people making hand sanitizer. Because I was doing some research and some reading, and it turns out that to make hand sanitizer, water is necessary, because the 99% stuff won't kill viruses and bacteria. It won't break the bond. It will only kill what it touches on the surface, and it won't break the bond and get to other viruses that are hiding below that layer. Whereas 60 to 75% will. The water will carry the alcohol in. So people run out and buy this stuff for making hand sanitizer. They're buying the wrong stuff. They should be using 70% or 60% for that purpose, or mixing this with 30% deionized water. Just something I learned after reading with all this pandemic crap going on. Everywhere you turn now, there's all this info out there. Okay, there's our playback. It's looking and sounding good. You can hear the sound. No more snapping and crackling and popping.
The benefit of radio frequency remote control is part.
And if we look over at Mr. Scope, our waveform's looking pretty good. And that's all I'm going to do on this thing, because this thing's not worth spending any more time on. It is now working. All I need to do now is put it back together and find it a home. This is mine, so this one I'm going to put this one up for sale. Seems to be that there's a market now for VCRs. Now that everybody's gotten rid of them, people are finding their old tapes and they want to play them again. So I've actually unloaded a couple of VCRs in the last few weeks. So now that this one's fixed, I'm going to put this one up and find it a new home. Ah, the fun of putting these things back together. Oh, stupid place. You gotta hold the mechanism out of the way to get the screwdriver in there. See, I didn't have to do this taking it apart because the mechanism was already out of position, but to put it back together, it's a little more of a challenge, because you have to get in there with the screws and screw them in with the mechanism pushing back on you. Now, I'm not showing the recording of this thing because I can't do recordings on it. Because you see this piece of crap, you need a remote to clear the initial screen. When you plug it in, it's asking for what RF channel you want the modulator on, channel 3 or channel 4. And you can't advance past that screen without the remote. It's another one of these stupid, ridiculous, asinine designs. I'll show you. You power this thing up. Auto setup. RF channel selection. 3/4 select, OK to start, menu, TV. None of the buttons on the front do anything. They'll take that off and say no cassette. If you press the play or fast forward or rewind or record, it'll go back to that screen, no cassette. If I play a tape, what happens if I play a tape? Will it or will it not go to the tuner? Stop. Goes right back to that. There's no way to select the channel until you select your RF channel. Even though we're using AV, you have to select the RF channel. So a machine like this will only be functional as a playback machine. It will never be functional as a recorder without the original remote. That is a stupid design. Anyway, this piece of garbage is back together. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one real soon. Bye.